moving out west.
Oh boy.
Let's get the A's out of the way.
Yeah.
The only thing I have
I
to
think there's
say,
two very easy conversations for different reasons, and then the other three are very interesting.
yes, the A's conversation is please do not move to Las Vegas. It is a soulless city. Just stop. Here's the other thing. I don't know how much you've read into their like stadium negotiations with. I'm talking specifically the athletics organization. They're having issues with Vegas even because of how greedy they're being with stadium funding
Yeah.
and all of that. Where like Vegas is getting tired of them. Like I foresee a situation in which the Athletics basically talk their way out of moving to Vegas because of the fact that they refuse to budge on stadium funding. And then Vegas just gets an expansion team, which, as a fan of baseball, I would be much more. Just put a team in Vegas, put it in Nashville. They're going to be like tacky, and I won't care for them. And that will be that. And I'll be fine with that. But I just, when you have a, organization as historic as the A's, please don't put them in a city without history. That's
Yeah, dude,
really
put them back in Philly.
why not? I put them in Kansas City again. Like I don't care. That honestly, what they should do, they should have to share the stadium in Kansas City, and whoever wins more games gets to stay, and the other team has
Wow.
to leave
That would
because
be
both
crazy.
they just battle royale. And if it's tied, can you imagine that game 163?
When the winner gets to stay, that'd be insane, dude. There'd be people fighting in the parking lot.
They've got all the luggage for all
like
the
a
players.
relegation, like soccer.
Yes. Like along the foul lines, they've got all the players like personal luggage, and like the only people in the stands are like the wife and kids.
Donald Trump goes on the big screen, you're fired.
It's some 8-year-old kid like pleading with Michael Massey, like, Dad, I don't want to move.
Like, it's the name of the game, son.
Fully mic'd up.
But yeah. I mean, they're going to be one of the worst teams in all of baseball.
I think the worst, which is well, there's an NL East contender in there.
There's an NL East contender. I was going to say, I think that they're going to be one of the two, in my opinion, worst teams in the game of baseball. There's not really too much to say. Like, they traded everyone away this offseason. They're not going to be great. I hope that they take a similar approach to the Tigers in the sense of like, let's just play all of the youth type of thing and see what we have.
For sure.
Because that will at least make it a little bit more interesting. They had a couple of really fun kids break out in spring training. So I hope that they, opening day roster or not, get some playing time in the majors at some point. I think that would be a much easier product to watch, as someone who's been through a rebuild for a long time. There's a big difference between watching an 100-loss team with all just like rental stopgap 1-year players that aren't going to be here next year, and losing 100 games but playing a ton of top prospects. There's a huge difference in entertainment value there. So for that, I hope they at least do that. But that's really it. Like there's really nothing else to say. They're going to be awful.
I mean, I'll give shine where shine is due. Seth Brown hits the ball hard. I'm excited to see the prospect return that he will get for them on July 15th. And I hope Esteury steals 150 bags because, like you said, if they're going to be a 100-loss team, I don't care if he gets caught 50 times. Just let him, because people are going to – there'll be, dozens upon dozens of fans in the stands, and they paid, at least something to come watch that team play. Listen, just I will bully them via the internet until they just, be grown-ups and build a stadium in Oakland. That's a city that has the Raiders are so much less cool now. Like they don't have that like gritty dog like mentality anymore. They're just a team, and they're a sideshow attraction in Vegas. You're a hockey fan. The Golden Knights are just a sideshow. Good Lord, sideshow attraction in Vegas. That's what they are. That's what a pro sports team is in that city. And for a team that has 9 World Series, do I have that correct? People don't remember. It's a lot. Like that's a team that has won a lot historically and like relatively recently. So I don't know. Just figure it out and you traded, Sean Murphy for peanuts and Esteury. So let him break a record, because then people will go to your games. and trade Tony Kemp somewhere nice because he also seems like a good person. A team that I also think will be bad is the Texas Rangers. And I feel like I'm the only person on the planet that doesn't. We've both publicly and privately talked about, like, to borrow from boxing, pound for pound, DeGrom is the single best pitcher in baseball. But it's on a rate basis, not. And I think you and I both are, we're getting old. So, we're a little bit biased towards the cumulative body of work pitcher. But I mean, I like the signing. I think Corey Seager will be a better hitter with the shift limitations, but like Semien, good for him. He got a bag, but I think that he's back to what he always was. Adolis Garcia could pumpkin at any time. Like, he just doesn't get on base. Nate Lau could pumpkin at any time. Josh Jung, I think, is a really interesting prospect, but K rate was really high. Like, there's all these caveats with every single player that they have. And I think until we see Rocker and Leiter up, then maybe we're talking, I trust that rotation more. But like Martin Perez could be a 4 ERA guy again. Like, there's nothing I look at on that team where I'm like, I feel secure that, with the exception of probably Seager, where I look at the team and I go like, I feel solid and secure that this guy's going to give me exactly what I want.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. I still have the Rangers as fourth place in this division. I think they take steps forward, but you also have to remember they were really bad last year. Like, this is not, like the Rangers, were like just a couple of games under 500 and then added like all these pieces. And so that's going to like get them over the hump. Like, this was a team that lost a lot last season. They were not good.
It's a 68 win team.
Right. Yeah.
The Marlins won more games than the Rangers last year.
Right. So like you're not talking about and very, very seldom have we seen like 25 win improvements from one season to the next in the history of baseball. Like that's not a very common occurrence. And so they have a lot of momentum. They did a lot this off season. They made a ton of noise. I respect it. I love owners spending money. Good for you. I hope that it leads to them playing competitive baseball in the future. I just don't think it's this year yet. And I also think that they're not really expecting it to be. I really like Josh Jung. I think that can be somebody who kind of like proves himself as part of the core for the future of this team. But even if you count him in, that's like 3 guaranteed bats. And 2 of them are, like $500,000 contract guys. Like, right. It's I don't know. There's still just a ton of holes offensively. They bought their entire rotation this season.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Literally just bought an entire new rotation in one off season. Like, that's nuts. So yeah, like can the rotation stay healthy? You can say that about anyone, but obviously they have DeGrom, so it's a little bit more of a conversation with them. And then it's offensively, what are they actually, like, what heights is that offense actually going to be able to reach? I still think outside of like guaranteed 2 and then like maybe 3, maybe 4 on like a hard maybe, like guys that you can pencil in as, like are going to be solid hitters this year. I don't know. Like, this is still just like not a very good ball club, and they're one starting pitching injury away from just like kind of being not too far removed from just like where they were last year before they spent, $500 million.
Yeah, I joked earlier that I said the Twins, it feels like their offense is playing like MLB The Show, but like this whole team is maybe the premier example of that. Like, I think when you talk about, we've really hyped up Cleveland. We talk about, it's the thing we always keep hitting on is organizational depth. And that's where Texas is lacking. I don't think they're lacking in terms of pitching prospects. I think that they have like relatively figured that out. I say figured that out. When you draft like top 3, like back-to-back years, like duh, you're going to figure that out. You're just taking, I'm not going to give the Rangers like as a credit as an organization for being like, wow, Jack Leiter, good discovery. Kumar Rocker, great
Right.
discovery, guys.
Brock Porter, great discovery. Like it's all
Yeah.
dudes that were very highly regarded.
Yes, exactly. So for me, I look at exactly what we're talking about. Let's say Simeon, has to miss a month and a half. Who's playing second base for them for 2 months? Like, you go trade for somebody, but that weakens your farm system. Like, there's what I want to see from the Rangers before I buy them as like Fangraphs has them at 83 wins. They have the Rangers and Mariners winning the same number of games, and they have both those teams winning one less game than the Angels. I don't think the Rangers improved by 15 wins as a team. I think maybe 10 is fair.
I agree with you. I think once you start getting into that like 15 to 20 game improvement in one season is where like sirens start going off in my head. That's an insane turnaround. Like you have to realize how like never that has happened. Like you have to realize how and that doesn't mean that this year can't be a huge stepping stone that leads to a really good like next 2 or 3 years after this year, right? If they do improve 10 games, that's a massive win. You know how like how hard it is to improve 10 wins from one season to a next? That's difficult. That's very, very difficult. So like that's a huge win for them. That's a huge stepping stone. Pagoda has them at 79.5 wins and 82.5 losses. So just under 500. I don't hate that at all. I think that would I think that they'd be fourth in that division with that record, and B, I think that would be like as I've said a million times already, a nice step forward to what the next couple of years could bring them with more youth coming up through the system and apparently more money than God.
If you were a betting man on 79.5 though,
under,
I would also take the under. I think 15 wins is unrealistic. I'll split the difference and be kind to them. I think 76 and 86 feels right for this team. Because that's competitive. That's realistically, I think the Rangers season, they're going to play 500 ball, except they're going to have one bad month and they're going to end 5 wins away from being 500. And then maybe we're having that conversation with them next year of taking that next step of, maybe I think 2024 is maybe more realistic for them to have that 83, 84, 85 even. That feels that but again, they'd be asking them to make another big step, but that's a conversation you and I can have in exactly 12 months. Like I said, the other team that they projected to win 83 games is Seattle, which it's very at Diamond Digest, I think both internally and a little bit externally. It's people like to not try to take them seriously. And I think that the majority of baseball Twitter, I think, kind of overhypes them a little bit. I'm definitely in the middle. This is a playoff team. I think 83 wins is boulder dash for Seattle. I mean, you're talking about a team that, they won 90 games last year, and they won 90 games the year before with a significantly worse roster. So exactly what you're talking about, right? That you take you make a big jump. Hard to repeat that, hard to replicate that. They improved the roster. They locked down Castillo. Logan Gilbert took a huge step forward. Julio was Julio. Cal Raleigh, like Ty France, like their overall construction. The question marks that you're asking yourselves are, can Julio take another step? To me, it seems to be very glass half full questions as opposed to glass half empty ones. And I'm sure there's a glass half empty version, but I don't know. I think that projecting them for 83 wins feels a 7 win backward step feels like a bit much, but
yeah, this is a really tough one for me. Like genuinely one of the most difficult teams for me to try to like get my pulse on, like only a me thing, like where I think the Mariners stand. It's very difficult because I think that last year was I admittedly do think that they are a prime regression candidate. I really do. And not regressing to 75 wins, but I think that they are a prime candidate to finish this year with like 83 to 86 wins and be like one of the best teams to just barely miss out on the playoffs. But that's not because I like hate their roster or anything. I
Right.
just think that they had a lot of there's still some question marks I have for this team, especially up the middle, not including center field. And like it's just it's I, I don't know, like they lose players, but then they bring in players, and you're like, oh, like that makes sense, like they lose Mitch Haniger, but then like their outfield is still very sound. They get rid of Winker, and you're like, okay, like I don't know, like there's not that Winker wasn't even really good last year, so like I guess that
No,
doesn't really
yeah.
matter either. Like it's one of those and maybe it is just a me thing, genuinely, but like I have a really hard time trying to figure out for me in my brain how good I think the Seattle Mariners are going to be in 2023. If they went out and won 90 and had like home field in the wild card round, I would not be shocked whatsoever. But I do think that there is several like players in key positions on that roster, not J-Rod, just so we're clear, that could be like pretty primed regression candidates. And their rotation, while it is solid, like we've said about a lot of people, honestly, about a lot of different teams, it is not an overpowering, amazing rotation. And their bullpen is full of dudes that I think are either going to be amazing or suck. So it's tough. That they're a really tough one for me. I would have them. Oh boy. I guess the other reason why it's tough for me is because of the Angels as well, which like every year
Yes.
is a ridiculous conversation to
I
have.
was
So
yeah,
like
you and I we're 90
trying
minutes in
to
and I think
figure
we could
out which
swim.
one of those I want to have second and which one third, I guess is part of it.
I was yeah, you and I we've been going here for about 90 minutes. I think earnestly we could spend another 90 minutes talking about what if we just ran through the hypotheticals of what could happen to Anaheim in the next 6 months even.
Yeah.
We could our producer said please don't. No, we won't do that. I will say I love the Colton Wong signing. People can look at the hat and the print of Busch Stadium in the background of this video and see why I would say that partially, but I think it's also just because good defender, and he has ever since he was a Cardinal. There were even the lean offensive years, it was more like a 95 WRC plus, and his best years with the Cardinals, it was a 110 WRC plus. And then he went to Milwaukee, and the last 2 seasons he really took steps up. So I think the concerns up the middle at shortstop, I think, are a little bit more valid. I love JP Crawford, but it's just that's a bit more of a question, I think. I think shortstop, I'm a lot more like Colton Wong is, I think, a great upgrade over Adam Frazier. Like
I love Colton Wong.
Colton Wong, you know what you're getting. You know what it's going to be. Is he going to have a 120 WRC plus? No. Is it going to be below 90? No. Are you going to get good defense? Yes. And so really, I think it just comes down to, is JP Crawford the shortstop of the future for them? That to me is a difference between what you said. I think that's fair to say that they're an 83 to 86 win team that could barely miss the playoffs. For me, I think I'm just one notch above that, where I'm 86 to 89. I think they could miss the playoffs and win 89 games.
Sure.
I think they could make the playoffs
totally
and win 89 games.
In the American League. It's just like it
comes down to it's almost out of their hands. I feel bad because we're trying to talk about. I'm trying to say what I think they should. I feel like partially it's almost out of their hands because the team we're going to talk about next, I think, has a very big hand in whether or not the Mariners 100%, are a playoff team.
That's and to your, that's what I said earlier as well. I 100% agree. I think that's why Seattle is only a really difficult discussion because the Angels are a more difficult discussion.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it's like those two are going to be hand in hand, and they're going to be, I think those are the two teams that are going to presumably be fighting for that second place in the AL West thing. And so we can just get like the jokes and the trolling out of the way early. Like, yes, haha, like the Angels, they suck. They have the 2 best players in the world. They're awful, blah, blah, blah. So now
Mike Trout finally got to play in the playoffs. Huh?
Right, yeah. Like,
he
got to play in a big game. Like, cool.
Okay.
He went to an Eagles playoff game. He was in the playoffs. Haha. So now that that's over, I don't want to do it because I know I'm setting myself up
We're on
for
it. We're on.
failure. But I
We're being recorded saying this time. It's not.
I know. I don't want to say because I don't want this to be clipped.
Your friends.
I
You're friends with the Angels.
I enjoy. No. I understand the Angels offseason. I think that
okay.
For so many years now, they have attempted to just go for the huge splash and like
Mhm.
the Rendon thing. They were in on Correa, like they were in on Garrett Cole, right? Like they continuously were like either signed a huge name or were like the runner up to wherever the player ended up going for all of these big name free agents over the last several years. And like I said, some of them they got, some of them they didn't. But I think that the reason that this team struggled is not because they don't have star power. Like,
Oh
obviously,
no, yeah.
that's not a problem. They have literally the two best players breathing on their baseball team. It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier with the Guardians. The Angels for the last 3 years just have had zero, like 2 to 3 win players around
Yeah.
them. It's been Ohtani, it's been Trout, and it's been a bunch of replacement level players. And this offseason, they didn't go out and get one of the superstar shortstops. And they could have. They have a hole at shortstop. Like they very feasibly could have. But they went out and they got Renfroe, they got Drury, they got a lot of pieces and that could go out there and win 2 to 3.5 games for them. Like be 2 to 3.5 win players and actually surround the two best players on the planet with competent Major League Baseball players. Rendon is obviously a massive question mark. That's gonna whatever happens, there happens. Like I don't even know if Angels fans are really even expecting anything out of him anymore.
Yeah.
But like if he's healthy and back to like old like Rendon, right? Like, oh, that's a whole different conversation. I'm not saying that's gonna happen, but like there's just I do enjoy their offseason. I think that they really did address a lot, even though none of them were like big, huge moves because they've just so desperately been begging for like slightly above league average hitters to put in their lineup around Ohtani and Trout and competent starting pitching. And they went out and they got Tyler Anderson and they
Detmers
like
and
Sandoval
are nice.
had a great WBC, and like a lot of people think he's going to have a good year. I don't want to set myself up for like the pie in the face thing, but I really do think the Angels are going to be like a competitive ball club this season.
Yes, the Angels are like this is very, Mike Trout is holding the football in the Lucy costume, and I am in my Charlie Brown costume. And he's saying, just come kick the football and say we're going to make the playoffs. Come do it. This time it'll happen. This time it'll happen. I won't, I'm not going to pull the rug out. I think that the Angels will have a winning record. And I think that they will. I'm willing to say this. I'm willing to gamble. I can't wait for this to get clipped. I'm willing to gamble that Tampa will have a down enough, like an average Tampa, like 84 win season. And that will enable. Oh, do I even want to say that? Because that means I'm booting Seattle. I think I'll go ahead and say that. I think that Tampa will have a winning but unspectacular season. And I will say that wild card 2 will come down to Seattle or Anaheim. I'm willing to say that. And that way I'm sort of absolving myself of making a prediction on total wins. Like I don't think this team is going to win. I don't think they're going to win 90 games. I just Anthony Rendon is the most amount of games he's played in a season is the COVID year as an Angel.
Yep. Yeah,
That's
it's like
bad.
50.
Yeah, that's not good by any metric imaginable.
And when he has played, he's been bad.
I mean, 2020 he looked fine,
Right.
but
Yeah.
2021 and 2022,
2020 are good numbers. And then the last 2 years, he's played like 40 games and been bad in them.
and the salary and Angels fans are gonna like hate to hear this, but I'll be honest, if he's just another one of those 2 to 3 win players for the Angels, that's good. Like
That's
that's
my
okay.
point. Like if I think I know a couple of Angels fans who would throw a parade if he was a 3-win player.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like yeah.
It just feels, if Seattle is picking a lock to try to figure out if we're trying to like get into a door, Anaheim, we are in Greek mythology. We are in the labyrinth, in the underworld. Like that is how different it feels. And I don't know. Like I'll keep the Ohtani speculation brief. I think he stays just because Artie Moreno is willing to write a blank check. He's the only person other than Steve Cohen that's willing to write a blank check. And I understand Steve Cohen could afford to, but I don't think that the owners would literally let Steve Cohen run like a $450 million payroll. I also, we're about to get to the NL East and I'll talk about, why I also think that he wouldn't do it. But I think that Moreno is the only other person willing to just say, like, Shohei, you get to pick a number that a contract has never started with before. Right. Do you want it to be a 5 or a 6? And like that is, it almost feels like that's how he starts negotiations, which I think makes it really hard for someone to walk away from that table.
I agree.
So
I don't think it's a foregone conclusion either way, is my take. Like a lot of people are just like, like Pangels, he's gonna leave, and it's like that's dumb.
When have they lost a free agent that they wanted to? When have they not?
But it's also just as dumb to be like, he's definitely staying. He loves it here. Like whatever. Like I just think it's dumb to lean on either side of that table. Like they. Do you have the stones to turn down $500 million? Like no,
I don't.
But like we'll see. It's really that's what it is. For their season, their team, Ohtani, everything is a we'll see.
And that's why I think this year what I said is I think even if they don't make the playoffs, like if they win 8, I'll say this. Ooh, do I want to put a firm cap on the? I'll say this. I think if the Angels win 86 games or more, Shohei Ohtani remains an Angel. If they go 87 and 75 and are eliminated at game 160, and it's because the Mariners won 90 games. Hello, headphones cord. Jesus. And it's because the Mariners won 90 games. I think Ohtani stays because it's a clear indication that, okay, the signings that were made were correct. Retaining Phil Nevin and removing that interim tag was the right call. I think that is the number that I'm comfortable with. Well, I don't think a winning record is enough. It needs to be a number that if I told you if we sat here right now and I told you I have a crystal ball and in 6 months the wild card 2 is going to win 87 games, you would say, okay, I could see that happen.
Yeah.
The Angels need to have a record of that in a leaner year or a regular year is a playoff record. That I think keeps Ohtani because then he sees that the front office knows what it's doing. It's
Perry.
Keeping Nevin was the right. Yes. Perry's. Yes. That to me is, I'll say that. I'll let that clip live on the internet.
Love it.
And when they go 88 and 74 and he leaves, I will get shelled, but
that's okay.
Speaking of divisions, well, I was about to say, speaking of divisions that spend money like water, but the Braves are laundering it, frankly. Then run that back. We didn't talk about Houston. What do we want to talk about? I don't know. I hope Jeremy Pena hits a little better because he's a really good defender.
I just think that this is not only for me personally, this is not only my AL West favorite, this is my American League favorite, and this is still my World Series favorite. I think that this is the best roster in baseball. I think it's one of the 2 or 3 best offenses in baseball. I think it's one of the 3 to 5 best rotations in baseball. I think it has the ability to be one of the 2 to 4 best bullpens in baseball. They're unbelievable.
Apologies if you're an Astros fan. It's just they don't even cross my mind because it feels so
foregone.
At this
I don't think there's like a deep philosophical like long discussion here. It's just like they are the golden standard at the moment, and I think again, not only they're going to win the AL West pretty comfortably, but not only the AL West, I think the entire American League is like you're trying to figure out how you can beat the Houston Astros and nobody else.
Yeah, and it just. I don't want to say you have to get lucky, but, you just have to hope that you're the hottest team in October. And even when you are, Philadelphia Phillies, still doesn't work out sometimes. Like that's really
still the
like
Houston Astros, man.
That really, their blueprint with Houston really feels like you need to be the hottest team on earth and hope the magic doesn't run out. That's how the Nationals did it. They didn't run out of gas, and Philly did. So how biased do I want to be and say they're not my World Series pick? I'll say that they're definitely my pick in the American League, though. I don't put it past Toronto, though. I almost want to say Toronto with home field advantage because that playoff environment in Toronto is just otherworldly. I don't know. I think Toronto Houston might be my ALCS pick if I were to, which feels like I'm kind of taking the easy route. I think the Yankees are due for like a very early playoff embarrassment, which I would enjoy. Like I could see them losing the wild card game.
I'm down.
I don't think any. Yeah, sorry, editor. I just think that the reason for that is I think it's really proof of like when it was the Red Sox Yankees wild card game, the Yankees. It felt like, at least the vibes to me was like they were like, oh, it feels like we shouldn't even be here. It feels like, how did we end up in the wild card game? And if regardless of how their record is, I think the expectations of the fan base and the organization is that they're never in that situation. So when they are, it's when they're in the divisional rounds where in the CS where I feel like it's like, well, this is where we're supposed to be, so we'll win. But yeah, Houston, yeah, they're smoking the AL West, which boo. I like parity, but I think we're 2 years out from. We're like Michael Brantley retiring and Jose Altuve not being a 900 OPS hitter away from Houston not being this overwhelming gauntlet.
Yeah, maybe losing one more player of the core too to free agency.
Yeah, which like I don't know how.
We'll see.
They let Verlander walk and Springer walk.
Right. Yeah.
It's ridiculous.